Where do you see tournament bass fishing in 10 years?
That's tough.
Where do you see tournament bass fishing in 10 years, and what do you think needs to happen to elevate the sport?
Well, it seems like right now the premier part of the sport is that there's TV coverage. That's the thing that, a lot of people promote. That's kind of the biggest kind of way to see tournament bass fishing. And I just feel like in 10 years, TV is going to be almost obsolete with the streaming platforms and all this type of stuff. So I really don't know where it's going, honestly. I don't think it's
streaming.
I don't think
Same difference.
I don't think it's going to hurt the sport. I think it's like you said, they'll be streaming or whatever. Yep. But that's going to be only streamed people who are already interested in it.
Right.
Like, how are you going to get random people to just see it and say, hey, what is this? Oh, that's kind of cool. Mm-hmm. I just don't – I don't know. But that's why other people have jobs that figure that out.
Yeah, that's – how do you get it, like, to make fishing like golf? You know what I'm saying? Where golf kind of broke into the mainstream sports.
Yeah.
I think – honestly, we got to – I say we come up with fish management on the lakes that we're fishing on, because that's a resource that only has so much of it. I'm saying, looking into the future,
I agree.
It does kind of freak me out to see where this is going. And you hear about places like the Coosa River. You live on the Coosa, right?
I live close, about an hour away.
So you fish it. How much has it depreciated compared to what it used to be?
Like he was talking about 2020. In 2019, it was really good.
Okay.
And now it's just like the lowest weights I've ever seen.
It's gone down.
And fisheries go through cycles. They go through cycles, but my thing is
all over the country.
Yeah, what Texas does for their fisheries, other states need to take into account. States that take in a lot of revenue for fishing, places like Tennessee, it's got Alabama, southeastern states need to look at what Texas does and just give, and I'm sure they already do. I'm talking way out of line here, but I'm just saying as far as keeping the resource available, because look at the amount of kids that are in middle school, high school, college, right? That they all want to be professional bass fishermen, and then so many of them realize that they're not going to be. They get into the industry is getting bigger, but yet you still have so many people that are going to do what? They're going to leave bass fishing because they don't have the money to do it or whatever. They're going to come back to it when they're 28, 30 years old. So we got to have a resource that's going to be around, because we're not making any more lakes. We're not, so taking care of those.
Unless you're Texas, because they're making another lake over there.
That's what I'm saying. When you can keep fisheries like that and they're creating bigger fish, like how cool would that be where they start a program where they're literally creating those bigger fish to grow?
I think also, like, I'm not about like, it's tough because I feel like we got to be careful about how many tournaments we have on bodies of water. Regulating I'm not about regulation to a point, but like, okay, you look at some of the best lakes in the country.
Yep.
It regulating them to an extent. Like, I mean, I love fishing Tuesday nighters. I love fishing Thursday nighters. I love fishing every day weeknight tournament there is. But there's a certain point when the resource is going to take the brunt of it, and I don't know. Not all of the fisheries can take that pressure. I mean, some of these fisheries can, but like, man, like, this is the thing. Like, we've done a great job of catch, weight, release and catching those fish and putting them in live wells and bringing them back and doing 3-fish tournaments on weeknighters rather than 5 fish on the hot days of the summer. But dude, at the end of the day, like, we still, it's tough on them. It's tough on them, and it's really tough. And when you go to and I'm not convinced, I'm not, Kentucky Lake was one of the best bass fishing lakes in the country. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people want to say, oh man, it was the carp.
Right. Tournament
pressure was at least 50% of that negatively impacted that fishery. And listen,
I would be a headline.
That's what it was though. It was. It was part. It was what it was. Listen, I'm just saying straight up. Like, think about it. You go out to a body of water, okay, and you take 200 great fishermen out there on that body of water, or you take a couple hundred, you take 100 boats out there fishing in a big tournament. And they catch the 5 biggest bass out of that school of bass, and they're all grouped up offshore. Mm-hmm. And 90 degrees outside. They catch the 5 best bass they could catch from the best genetics out of the whole system, out of the school that they could catch that day.
And they cull 15 times and drag them across the carpet.
And they bring them in.
90% of them.
Dude, like that's your genetics are going to deplete. You're going to deplete your genetics. Your top fish are ultimately going to pay the price.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, I mean, now listen, does that now we've done, but well, think about it. Back in the day, 30 years ago, we were hanging them up on boards. Stringers. And the 20. Now listen, we've done way, now I'm trying to back it up now. We talk about that as well. You know, like we've gone leaps and bounds. Mm-hmm. But as far as conservation, and we're continuing to grow. As anglers, we're seeing how much of an impact that helps. You know, having ice, taking the time. But there's so many anglers out there that don't even have the understanding, no one there to teach them, hey, you got to have 4 bags of ice when you go out there on a weekend.
You got to fizz them properly.
You got to fizz them properly. You got to have fin clips. It takes a lot to keep these fish alive.
Yep.
It does. And so I think there's a certain point now. I just think that long term, and I'm not about regulation. I'm not, but I'm just saying that is something that we got to be very careful about, because I mean, when you're talking about 400 boat, high school tournaments, which is great to see the young anglers out there on the body of waters fishing, and you see 250 boat Toyota Series events, all these events, man.
Well, it's just the amount of pressure on that single body of water.
Yeah.
Like maybe 2 BFLs a year and all that.
Yeah.
I think if you regulated it a little bit more, I think Pickwick's taking a toll. Chickamauga's definitely taking a toll from it.
And I think the fish, honestly, the fish are still there. Like, obviously, the levels up,
I don't think the population's there. I don't.
But I think that they just become so accustomed to it.
They get better. Yes, like you threw an A-rig, back in the day, and you caught the heck out of them, and then you throw an A-rig now. It's a completely different story.
They're so used to the pressure.
But I just don't. I don't think there's not the numbers.
It's definitely changed in numbers, but I mean, it's obvious.
It has changed.
It's not completely depleted it.
No. I'm not saying that.
But that portion that's there is like
they're smart. They're
what's
smarter
up.
than they've ever been. They have more pressure than they've ever been. It's harder. It is.
Definitely harder.
Does pre-practicing really help? Do you feel like day in, day out? There's so many anglers that are out there. You look at like Octafo, and then you look at other anglers that the Octafo he just rolls up and he'll practice his 2 days and he'll get off the water early. He'll get off the water and be at 5 o'clock. That's just how it's how he likes to process information. It's how his mind works. And there's other anglers that pre-practice the heck out of each body of water before they go out there. Do you think that really benefits them, or can that also be a negative? Like, where's your mind on pre-practicing?
I'm not really sure on it right now. I mean, it definitely can be a negative. I think there's a right way to pre-practice and a wrong way to pre-practice. Like, it's bad enough to get locked into something you were doing in regular practice going into the tournament. Mm-hmm. If you fish very much in pre-practice and catch them, you're going to waste your time in practice.
Checking what you did before.
Yeah, checking what you did before.
A month before.
If you're going to pre-practice, you need to just ride around. Look at the lake. Try to understand how it sets up, where's dirty, where's clean, where has grass, where don't, all that type of stuff. That's my opinion. If you go pre-practice on a lake that's going to be offshore, you go look for brush piles, all that type of stuff. That's the only way that I would really pre-practice, is checking water clarities and stuff like that. But you can do a lot of that stuff online now,
So you think it hurts more anglers than helps?
I think if you try to go there and figure out how to catch them.
But do you think the majority of anglers do?
I think the majority of pros are pretty good with it.
You think they just go and look around?
Yeah. I believe that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's to each their own.
Yeah.
It's to who can process the information on their own terms. Some guys, like myself, I haven't been to, I have now, but being to a lot of the lakes, just being familiar with it goes a long ways. I can't tell you how many times that I've pre-practiced and I've fished a bunch, and I've had one little place that was not a B, C spot. It was like a plan F spot. You know what I'm saying? Like, not even in the script on day one, but I rolled up there and it worked for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, so of all the stuff that I did, that one spot helped me catch 2 keepers for that event. To me, that was kind of worth it. To have kind of the lay of the land of how that fishery sets up. But then there's been other times, exactly what Kyle said. I'm out there for a day and a half of practice or a day of practice, backtracking what I did the month before, and that's all kind of learning as an angler, how to make that stuff work.
There is a lot to it.
There is a very specific way for each person to go and figure things out, and not to get yourself in a hole, and know that things are going to change. You're looking for the time of the year that you're going to be there, not the month that you're there before. So,
Well, I think it also comes down to this. If you're a young angler out there competing and you're jumping in the sport, you better be pre-practicing. If you've never been there before, you get lay of the land, you better be out there grinding.
It's not going to hurt.
Some of these lakes are hard to navigate.
100%. You have this thing in the NFL and the NBA and all these, even like golf. You have courses they change. You need to know the lay of the land. Mm-hmm. You need to understand the course, and if you understand the course, it helps you make better decisions when you get in the position that you need to.
True.
So that's how I look at pre-practice.
Yeah.
This portion of the lake. Has
I don't practice. I don't pre-practice a ton anymore. I do a little bit. I'll spend a couple tournaments a year. I definitely know what you're saying, and I think there's scenarios that you just have to practice where you're trying to figure out the playing field. You have to understand the playing field. You look at golf. You look at golf as a sport, and it comes down to the point where you're like, man, each golf course, is completely different. And I think there's times that I feel like over the years I've learned how to pre-practice smarter rather than harder, and that does end up helping in the long term. So I think there's value in it, but I've also been in the same scenario where you're talking about. But if you have if you have a spawn tournament coming up, going to that lake might not be that much beneficial. That beneficial, but if it does end up being a pre-spawn tournament, there's some tournaments I remember I'm like, oh, that's gonna be like this, and then it ends up being something like, oh man, I should have went and came in pre-practiced.
I can remember some tournaments like Fork or Santee, where I just wish I would have went and figured out how to get into places. Because you waste so much time in practice just trying to go check stuff that you can't drive. You just can't just drive through stuff.
You're not efficient.
Yeah. So I just wish I would have figured that out in some tournament.
100%. And what you're doing when you go. You have a mission when you're going to those bodies of water.
Yes.
I mean, we all do. But I'm saying to really actually know exactly, 99.9% positive, this is what's going to be going down this time of the year, blah, 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 on this body of water. And, that takes a lot of knowledge just to even put yourself in that position to know, the general gist of that body of water and how it's going to go down. I feel like these anglers are going to do this, so I'm going to look for something off the wall to do that. That's key. And I'm more I'm just going to see the place. Banks on the left, banks on the right. We're good.
Lay down here.
Hey.
Lay down there.
Mark that.
Dock.
Yep.
This is my kind of stuff.
100%.
But if you're going to be a specialist, if really you want to be a specialist, that'd be the least time where you should pre-practice, right? In my opinion. Because you know what you're going to do before you get there. You got 3 or 4 rods.
I would agree.
3 days of practice on the elites.
No, because there's a lot of nuances in still being a specialist, though.
But all right. Define.
We're just not specialists. We don't understand.
Yeah, I'm probably not.
Hey, listen.
I'm a general
you're more
specialist.
Of a specialist. I would say you're more of a specialist, right?